Komin. Herðu, já, bara að hluta það ekki. So, welcome to lunch with Digital Humanities, and I want to welcome Högni, professor from the University of Reykjavík, Reykjavík University, who's going to talk about experiencing another time and place in 3D.
For the technical difficulties, which always accompany some kind of live demonstration, but I'm going to try to do one today, a live demonstration. But first, a little bit about the project. Actually, I want to start with acknowledgements and make sure that they are up front. So this project is... We decided to team up with computer scientists so that we could develop approaches to urban design that were novel and kind of using the latest 3D technology available to us. In our partnership, so this team is sort of the coordinating team for this project. We also have a team of students and employees at Anvalis that have been contributing to this project as well. But I want to also mention that originally this project was made possible. This is not an actual funded project by Högni's. Previous projects that were funded by the research Icelandic that are used today. We also actually made use of the infrastructure fund that got MSHL to buy some 3D scanning technology, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. But first and foremost, actually, and last but not least, I want to really acknowledge the amazing family at Ásbrandstad. This is complete. So they are financing it, and they're also providing all the historic content or most of it. So that's really, those are the people behind the project, really. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the project background and then some of the technical challenges of creating something like this. So a little bit about the background. There was the original project that was funded by Högni was called Cities That Sustain Us. And this was a project that focused on using virtual reality to study how the design of the urban environment, how it impacted people psychologically. So the idea was that then put into it some kind of new designs, new plans, and then stick people into those environments in VR and see how they respond to it, measure the response. And from those measurements, sort of get an indication of, is this a livable place? I mean, is this going to sustain people? People going to kind of, it might actually not be so good for the human population. So it's sort of the psychological angle of urban development is what we were doing. So we had to build technology to make this happen, to be able to project the future, essentially, into VR. This was a collaboration that I started in 2014. Reykjavík University was sort of the computer university where we had the Institute for Housing and Urban Research as part of the project. And DGJ Design Consulting and Research, where Jakob Lindahl is also coming from. Also some municipalities around Iceland were involved originally in this kind of efforts. This whole thing, it's been a while, you know, so this whole thing led to the founding of the company in Vallis around the country. And the focus is on experiencing this kind of built environment, you know, the street views and architecture and things like that. How that really is, how you experience that in the context of the surrounding nature. So the natural environment is just as important to get right as the built environment. So these two things are important for us that we've been working on that have to do with planning and architecture are, for instance, a project with Blönduós. In Blönduós we have an old quarter, an old part of town, and there have been some ideas about bringing back even some of the buildings that are long gone. This was an opportunity for us to showcase how we could, in fact, model react to that in VR. So you could walk down this street here, look at the old bakery that is no longer in this position. There's nothing there at the moment. Or Kistan, which is another place down there, bringing that building in. And so we can sort of take them out, put them in, and different number of buildings and so on. So this has been a very valuable tool, and also just a way for inhabitants. The inhabitants of Blandos have to see what. And then I really remember in one of the meetings we had with the inhabitants of Blandos, when we brought in the old bakery. Some of the older ones really remember that house, and they started telling stories about the little shop that was there. And there was not always a bakery, but there was a shop also you could get other things. And they would talk about it as they approached it in VR. Blandos is an example of sort of older buildings being brought back. Högni is a place where new developments are happening. So they're thinking of opening up a little bit of an area up here on the mountainside called Skjól, where they're placing some apartments. And so you really want to understand how that impacts just the current residents, so they can walk, how this kind of fits into the natural environment, again, just the mountainside, the trees that are already there, there's already a bit of a forest there. So all of that we could do with our technology. And I'll come back to that in a minute here. Oh yeah, I'll go back to the tactical, yeah, well, you can sort of see here. One of the things that is important for because if you want this to be a part of the process of planning, you need to update it quickly and just keep showing it to people so that you have a conversation all the way along. It's not a visualization technology to show you something that already has been built or already has been decided. It's not a production of some kind of, we just update these things and show you what's happening. And we need to be able to do that even when there are large landscapes as part of it, and changes to the landscapes. So that was what we have been trying to address in our technology. Now, then we come to this project, Ausgangstæði, which is out here, over there, and also they are running a popular tourist lodging site there, camping and summer houses. They saw this Blandos project and other projects on TV. We happened to be in London at some point in 2024. They saw this and they were inspired. Like, you can actually make a 3D recreation of anything, like place, which is a postal museum at the farm site in a place called Glaðheimar, which is sort of like a community center. And they were planning to do this to honor the legacy of their own forefathers, who were the last postmen going this northeastern and northern route in Iceland. A lot of artifacts remain from that time that they had been collecting and setting up in their little museum here. And now they wanted to somehow explain to people that the postal route that these people took is quite long. They would go from Vopnafjörður, from Ausgangstæði, essentially, Vopnafjörður right here, and then they would go about 200 kilometers all the way to Víkinga, which is up here. A horse usually, but they would even go walking. When the conditions were not good for the horses, they would actually walk. But this was about a week or 10 days trip, depending on, of course, conditions. Then conditions could get really bad. One thing about the postal service is that you cannot really, in almost whatever the weather was, whatever the conditions were, they just have to find a way to get there. Because if they miss their kind of rendezvous time over here, the mail would not carry the rest of the way, which would be maybe all the way to Reykjavík. So these were people that were generally considered almost, like heroes. They would just be ready. Ausgangstæði really wanted to allow people to experience, in some ways, this route and the different stops along the way. And they asked if we could help them, and we did accept the challenge. We had never created anything at that, and we did accept the challenge. We had never created anything at that scale before. We thought it was very interesting to see if we could with the technology that we have. but let's try it. And we were quite passionate about trying something that was historically related. So it's not urban planning and these kind of things, but it was a bit of a passion project for us as well. So what is the technical challenge here? Kind of obviously, it is a massive journey. Make it into an interactive 3D experience. And I suppose you also want to reflect historic times, but to a degree. And there's a major disclaimer here because a lot into VR. So the historical aspect, we'll come back to that later, but mostly the historical aspect is in the form of information and some of the buildings being recreated, but we'll come back to that later. So we did accept this challenge. There are different approaches to this and different research groups, different. One idea would have someone actually travel the route and just record on a 360 video camera the entire trip from start to finish. You can stereoscopic video. You can actually have a person put on a VR headset and sort of experience it as if they were there looking in all directions and so on. But it has some problems. It is not really interactive. Even if you can look around, you are not guiding the trip. You are not able to explore something off to the side, for instance. You're stuck with the actual trip, which can also get you queasy, actually. But another thing, if you want to introduce a new building that is gone, how are you going to do that easily in a 360 video? It's possible, but it might not be worth trying. It's going to be a little bit weird. Another sort of approach, like a drone, for instance, like just captures the depth information of the elevation and sort of how the light bounces off different structures along the way and records all of the points that it passes by. Those points can then be recreated in 3D. So in fact, people are doing that with VR. They're kind of scanning a building or a building site or something like that, and then they can go into VR and sort of walk around. But there's a lot of little dots in there. There's a lot of data, even in a single building, that is being stored. It is sort of like at the tip of the laser pointer. Imagine doing that around about there's 200 kilometers along the way, just pointing the little laser pointer, recording that little point. How many points is that? That's a lot of points, and it's going to be very difficult to even just handle it, display it. But then it also has a similar problem to these things, which is that it's difficult to manipulate and model, set in stone, essentially. But then having, being able to really modify it to bring it back to another time is not so easy. All of these things are also going to be kind of fixed in terms of the weather, the light. There's one kind of an easy thing to do, which is to use existing 3D elevation models that have projected satellite images on top of them. We have amazing places already on the web, like the 3dmaps.is So we have this, and we have Google Earth. But what is happening there? So we have these kinds of things on the web. If you haven't tried it already, you can look into. This is Ausbrandstad. This is Waldmafjord right there. You can get closer, and it looks quite nice. Then you get a little bit closer, and you get this. So this is the satellite imagery and the elevation data kind of up close. And this is where you completely have a place that you can visit and walk around in. So Loftmyndir has produced this, and again, it's an incredible resource to look around the country. But it's maybe not the one resource you want to use to walk around and experience things first person. So our approach is what we call it's a procedural approach. And again, I should just mention I didn't actually introduce myself as Hannes. Questions about his history. So I'm focusing a little bit on the technical side here. So our approach is a procedural approach. So before we run the application, before we hit run, there's some pre-processing that happens, some work that happens before that. But that is for the entire area that I showed you there. And we are using available data to both, of course, adjust the elevation of the terrain, but also to paint the terrain. So the surface of the terrain gets a certain sort of material laid on top of it. We'll come to that in a minute. So this is all done ahead of time, but this is a fast process. We're talking about like an hour or two just to make this, and bridges and things like that. Some of them can be generated sort of autonomously. In fact, there is one type of structure we can do completely autonomously, and that is just to use the 2D plans of buildings and extrude them upwards a couple of meters, and you'll get a gray box. That's sort of the lowest level of detail that we produce, but that's produced autonomously, so we can fill in the last, large areas of the gray boxes. But then we want to go in, and like you saw in Blendos, you have these actual houses that you recognize. That's something that we're doing by hand. We also help by some 3D scanning, which I'll come back to later again, the corresponding places. This is all ahead of time. Then once the application is running, once you launch the viewer or the experience, there are all kinds of things that get instantiated or created or spawned at runtime based on all this information that we have entered into the world. So vegetation is not placed by hand at all. Trees and grass and that's not by hand. That's the algorithms noticing what some wildlife. Right now, we have a procedural way to generate the audio that goes with going through the landscapes, and the weather just is dynamic, and it's kind of, well, you'll see. Maybe let's see if it works. So these are all controlled by rules, the preparation, and then we have something happening while we're running. Just a little bit more in detail about these three things, starting with the terrain generation. We are using the terrestrial habitat types that the Nature Institute in Iceland has a lot of data for. So they have kind of surveyed the entire country in terms of what are the dominant vegetation, plant life, and wildlife in particular areas. And this is really down to about this for the entire country. We have then from that we have this sort of defined a selection, or we have selected from that some general types. Actually, we have selected over 30 types, 30 to 40 different types. There are more in the database, but we're focusing on the top ones. And then we associate those types with materials. Actually, this down here is actual photographs of Iceland from the institute, from the Nature Science Institute. These are their photos, and then these are the textures that we have picked that correspond very closely to those habitat types. And it turns out that we're able to textures that were produced from photographs of Iceland. So there are some international databases of these kinds of textures, and one database, in fact, has a lot of things from Iceland. So we were able to match up kind of nicely the different habitat types. And then we have the elevation data, which is very easy to get a hold of. And then we automatically generate the elevation, and then we use this to project down on that elevation all of these different types different habitat types. And they kind of blend nicely. I mentioned here that they are actually depth encoded textures, which means that if the texture contains, for instance, a rock, there is a little bit of a bump in the texture where the rock is. So it's a little bit like a 3D texture, which actually has a lot of impact on how you experience things. The built environment, like I said, you can get quickly these great boxes and things, but a historic project, you don't have anything except some, well, you may have some photographs, drawings, and first-hand experiences describing things that are long gone. Ausgangstad itself, which is the beginning point of the postal route, that is still there. The house is still there, but it's changed a lot because they have, of course, moved to a new house for living in. But the old house is there for farm things. So you have from inside, so you don't have the original rooms. So what this involved was to visit this site and actually start measuring things, see where the walls used to be, and of course talking to the people that used to live there. So the sister of Erla was actually lived in one of the rooms here, and she described it very vividly, how you walk down the hallway, how the stairs to the second floor were. So we could sort of go back and forth and ultimately create a 3D model of this particular building. For other houses along the route, photographs, maybe we'll have to fill into the gaps here a little bit. Then we have the opportunity to scan artifacts that exist today and bring them into 3D. And this is where the 3D scanners come in, where this center, MSHL, helped us actually get those scanners, the artifacts. We haven't really made them very interactive, honestly, just yet. I've only done a few of them all the way into this interactive experience, but they look incredible once you place them in there, and we'll see them hopefully in person. The last thing was some instantiation. So these two things, this of course, and this is all done ahead of time. But then once you go into the environment, you can instantiate or create or spawn, as I say, different things that have to do with the nature. And the audio is very important, I feel like, if you want to experience our country, for instance. And we were able to use information from the Nature Science Institute. That information, we were sort of able to categorize the soundscapes into a few different groups. We have about 10-15 different groups defined, and each group is sort of like has a name, and then what biotypes or sort of habitats that group belongs to, how much activity, how much sound you should be hearing, maybe occasional, or is it like going all the time? And then what birds you would hear in that area. So we have this done for all the different groups. And then as you travel through the environment, we are using some spatial sorting techniques to really quickly detect whether we have already spawned some audio in that area. If we already we're entering a new area, we might have to create a new source. So then it's automatically generated based on the habitat type that you're in. And these are like about a 500 by 500 meter sort of cells of audio. I want to mention Magnus Bergsson, who is an amazing audio engineer that has been going around Iceland collecting data, collecting audio from all parts of Iceland, and especially bird sounds and things like that. We were lucky to find his resource and got in touch with him, and he gave us permission to use his recordings for this project, which I'm really grateful for. So let's see if we can get a little bit of live demonstration, and I want to see. So this is, of course, part here. Let's see if we can. This will take a little bit. So as you can see, for those of you that are familiar with game technology, we are using the Unity game engine to do it all. And the Unity game engine was not really built for this kind of a project of this scale. But we sort of managed to do it. Let's just cross fingers, though it takes a little bit of time to warm up. And so I have a game controller to control my movements in the environment. And this is going to be, and this we already set this up on a large screen in the museum, but the idea is that they will give you a guided tour, essentially. Also, of course, try it as well. But it sort of has the opportunity to be both a presentation and a first-hand experience. So, let's see. I would like to see if we have any sound now, actually. Where's the sound here? Okay, you're hearing this?
Yes.
Okay. Not really hearing the birds here. Oh, yeah, you heard the horse. Okay, good. Okay, so we are going to make this window a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so I have the controller, and I am now standing outside of Ausbrandsstad. We also put these labels on the different parts and labeling them because we talked to the people from those places. We really went the entire route and they told us the names of things that they remembered and that were important for them. So it was not just a matter of taking everything from map.is and putting it in. It was really just like, these are the things we want to be able to point out. And we have a little bit of a mini map here. It shows us which direction we are facing, for instance. And then we have the actual farm there. I don't want to run around a lot. It might make you a little bit sick, actually, if I run around. It's more fun for me because I'm controlling it. Right? There's the scanned objects. And I can go up to them. This is postkistet, this is Cliffbear, so they are interactive, but I also have a little bit of a way to give you more information if you want. So you walk up to these cubes, up whatever information you want. So this is information they gave us, the whole picture. You can flip through the story of the people of Guðmundur, the landpóstur, and then his son and Runolfur. And when they were doing all of this, old pictures, new pictures, a lot of the pictures are coming from here as Kalasat Inka, so there's a content from them here, and then I can close this. So anytime I have some information, these blue things can just be entered. And then, and here's our horse to start the journey, but just to get a little bit of a sense of how big this is. I'm now in the walking mode. I could now start walking to Víkingavatn if I wanted. That's and it will show you the entire way. I can go up into flying mode, so it's a little bit faster. So I can fly. Now I'm flying sort of south of here. I can look over to the west over there. This again could take a while. I can go faster. I can go over the entire place. I can go up. And you can see how far this goes. This is also, this is kind of a fun way to explore. You can always land anywhere you want and experience that location. Look up. So I can jump, for instance, to one of the mountains here. Let me see if I remember which direction I have to go. This direction. So here I'm in Krossvíkurfjall. This is across from Ausbrandsstad. So Ausbrandsstad is showing down there. This is Vopnafjörður below here. And I'm really now up in the mountain, and I feel like the bird sounds are not coming through very loud enough here. But if you listen carefully, and the sound would be a little bit high, I can go up the we are in you hear, we have something. I can even spot them if I look carefully. So there's a different soundscape up here. The sun is something that we can move. There's a time. So if you want, you can look down here and let the sun go all the way down. So we have evening now here. We are really happy with the weather. This was fun. Like the weather is really nice right now. But if I want, I can actually change the weather also to overcast and this a different type of experience. The sun kind of extrudes a little bit through there. So I can play with the time and the weather, and then if I go back, this is the night, there's a little bit of stars and stuff. Now the morning comes. Now we're about noon here again. Okay, good. I did mention that you can actually, we did go in and measure all the rooms, old rooms. So there's a way for us to even go through some of these doors inside. So here we are. So we can, I'm just going through it, through the wall. So we're talking about a detail that lets you experience sort of the inside of buildings, but also go on top of mountains and walk over there. But then, lastly, I want to show that the whole route is there. So if you take the horse, and it automatically drives us along the route. I can increase the speed a little, I can control the speed, I can control where I'm looking. So I can go really super fast. And then along the route there are some points that are important. Of course, Vopnafjörður is the first place that you might want to stop in. So once the railway here arrives at Vopnafjörður, you are given the opportunity to take a look. So you can go down. We have not put in Vopnafjörður. It's an opportunity for Vopnafjörður to not have their town represented. But you can open up information if you want here about Vopnafjörður, of course. That shows where they look up here. This is exactly where those houses would have been. And here's our horse again. So you can go back and then continue the journey. And there's a fork. You can go the left-hand side or the right-hand side. You can get a little bit more information about this, but actually this is because this sometimes is flooded over, so you can't go that way. And now the journey is ongoing, and you are. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to see. We are now. Where's the? Okay, I clearly have to pick a better color. We are here basically. So we have all of this to go. All of that to go. That's a long. So I'm not going to go through all of that. It's, that's for another time. But I can speed things up, slow things down, and at any point I can go from what is called Vilhjálmsson, and I can walk around the area. But let's just finish going to maybe a couple of one place, maybe. I'm going to some of the way. Some of them are quite, they're out of the way, so it added a lot of walking to go to those places. And here's Finnafjörður, where the windmills are being planned. Yeah, we'll actually play a little bit with putting them there, just to see how it comes out. And here we have another Högni. These are a lot of Högni. Now we have Fosen. So we can go to, here is a place where we have a choice called Södernes, in where they were expected to be. And you can walk around here and explore. But this is kind of We have done this for many of the places along the way. We have 10 stops along the way. I'm not going to go through that now. I'll just go to this last stop. Just go quickly through them. A lot of nice stops here. Actually, one of them is a particular mountain pass that we had to go through. It's kind of exciting. And then on top of the highlands, there's a place in the middle of nowhere, which is a very interesting place. And then we go, now you're maybe recognizing we're now getting close to, yeah, this is Vilhjálmsson. Our split is over there. So here are photos. Okay, I think I'll stop here with this and just go talk to my final slide, which is just the last point here. We set this up in Glæðivar in Áslandsdæ last week, so it's really new. But we consider this a world that we just continue to build, so any new content can be inserted into this, historical or otherwise. And we can include other information sources, so we could connect to software and put all of these objects in there, or at least information. You know, having people do it by themselves, having to present something, and this really forces us to think massively big in terms of the environments that we can create. But we think that we were able to scale it up successfully. In fact, our approach. But I think still this is sort of stretching it a bit in terms of the computing power and being able to run this. This is not actually an easy way of delivering. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.